Hello and welcome to another edition of In Words and Music. And I am so happy today to welcome our guest, the one and only Melanie Safka. Melanie, great to see you.
Hi, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. I've got to start with the obvious question. How are you doing? How are you coping during lockdown? Have you discovered anything about yourself?
You know, I have sort of, I'm an imaginative person. I'm not really, I'm not going into total agreement with the entire way it's been done. I mean, that's just me, you know, I'm not very politically correct, and I don't wear a face mask because I have just too much information that they don't work. And a lot of people wouldn't like me. And a lot of people politicize this thing, you know, which I think is very dangerous. Because when people believe there's a right side and a wrong side, it's so easy to control them, you know. So I'm a little bit out there, you know, as far as my point of view. So you might not want to even talk to me about this.
No, I'm more than happy to talk to you about any number of things.
Okay.
And, you know, it's one's point of view. And I think nobody has a clue at the moment quite what on earth is going on. Let's move on for now, and let's go right back into the past. Can I ask you, what was your very earliest musical memory?
When I was about 3 or 4 years old, I came from a very musical house. My entire family sang and played instruments. My mom was a jazz blues singer, and my Uncle George was a union protest song singer, labor songs. And my grandmother was in the Ladies Garment Workers Union, and she, you know, fought for the women's rights there. And in those sweat factories, you know, in the sewing machine, and she did what she called piecework. And it wasn't that kind of piece. It was each little sleeve, you know, you got a few pennies, and she was really active in women's, you know, the rights of the Ladies Garment Workers Union. And she was from Italy, and she sang, you know, the Italians, every one of them that I knew growing up, they just would break into song. You know, they'd be walking down the street, and my grandmother sang. My Uncle George taught me how to play the ukulele. It was a baritone ukulele. And that's what I learned to play first.
Do you recall the first song you played?
Yes. It was high over the grasses, the butterfly passes and whispers, sweet clover, arise. For winter is over, and I am your lover. Sweet clover, do open your eyes. And it required 2 chords. You know, I called it the number 1 chord and the number 2 chord. Number 1 was just pressing down on the 3rd fret, the 1st string, and the number 2 chord was those 2 fingers on you know, the top and skip a string down. Anyway, those are the first 2 chords I learned, and that was the first song I learned.
Looking back on that childhood, how would you describe it? How would you describe your childhood now?
I was left on my own. I think that was the most wonderful thing about my childhood, is that people didn't seem to interfere, you know. I had grown-ups all around me, and I knew I was taken care of, but I would, on a weekend, they would open the door and I'd go out and I wouldn't come back till it was dinner time, you know. And that's how I think about that freedom, the absolute freedom to wander, look at things, talk to people, although they always warned, don't talk to strangers. So everybody was a stranger. It was New York, you know, but nobody meddled with me. You know what I mean? Nobody said, well, how does Melanie feel about that? You know, none of that. There was none of that. It was, I mean, I once remember coming up from the basement, the level of, under our apartment was a set of stairs that went down, and that's the superintendent, would he would make wine. He was from Italy as well, and he made wine. There was always this very pungent smell coming past this certain part of the basement level of the apartment building. And then there was a little back area where I found a fig tree. He grew a fig tree in New York. And in the winter, you know, when it started getting cold, he wrapped. And then when it started to get warm, he would unwrap it. And figs that I didn't know what they were, you know, would grow. And he said I could pick them if I wanted. And because there were thousands of them that would grow on this tree. And I was fascinated with the whole idea of anything growing that you could eat. You know, I mean, to me, an orange you found in the grocery store, you know, it wasn't something that grew. That was my child reality, you know, on it. And so when he said I could pick these, and it was before they were ripe, and if you pick a fig, this white milky stuff comes out. It's sticky, very, very sticky. And I was, you know, one day I had been there and I was playing with this white gooey stuff, and these boys came and they interrupted my solitude, and they said, "Oh, what is she doing?" And they started taunting me, you know, and one kid said, "Ooh, she's got gook, Mother Gook. She's Mother Gook." And, you know, it's funny how something like that sticks with you. And I started to cry, really upset being called Mother Gook. And I ran upstairs, and this is a memory I have of being taught to have me feel better. It was a good kind of meddling, because I ran upstairs sobbing and crying, and my Uncle George said, "What's the matter?" And "They're calling me Mother Gook. They call me Mother Gook." And he said, "Just remember, next time that happens, you look at them and say, 'Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never harm me. And when I die, I'll spit in your eye, and then I'll join the army.'" That was my great defense. I was armed with that, and the next time I went down, no boys came. But I was ready.
What is wrong with boys? That's a question I've asked myself all my life. What is wrong with us boys?
Boys. Well, they always seem to hang around in packs.
Right. So a life of freedom. Did school encroach upon that freedom of yours?
That what?
Did school encroach upon your freedom as a child?
Did what encroach?
School, your education. I assume you went to school at some point. Yes.
School. Yes. Yeah. I loved school until a certain point, and I'm trying to. It was. I was really had an aptitude for math, clearly presented to my parents, but they insisted I wasn't trying hard enough. But I truly, I was lost. I was lost in math. There was some key, maybe there was a misunderstood word. Maybe it was, you know, one little concept I wasn't getting. But they said I had very great ability in math, but I wasn't trying hard enough. And so I kept failing math. And they kept putting it up to my non-wanting, you know, just not doing it. But it's not, it wasn't true. And that became, so there I was saddled with, I don't do math, you know, and for my whole life, I've, as soon as numbers enter, and I'm fascinated with numbers, but as soon as it's mathematical, I'm not interested.
Well, I'm with you on that. I always make the excuse that I must have been away the day they did maths at school.
My cuckoo.
Well said, cuckoo, well said. Were your talents recognized at school?
Early on, my mom would be encouraging. She would, I would be in talent contests and whatever they were contests, and people won prizes, things, which I think nice thing. But so I was in this show. It was a show, and I remember being up there with my ukulele and playing. It might have been a song called Playmate, Come Out and Play With Me, and bring your dollies three, climb up my apple tree, slide down my ring barrel, slide down my cellar door. We'll be jolly friends forevermore. Oh, she couldn't come out and play. It was a bright and sunny day. With a cheerful eye, she breathed a sigh, and I could hear her say, playmate, I cannot play with you. My dolly has the flu. Hoo, 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 hoo. Ain't got no ring barrel, ain't got no cellar door, but we'll be jolly friends. This was the jolly move. I was taught this. This means jolly. Jolly friends forevermore. Anyway, I was playing my ukulele, and my string went out of tune, seriously out of tune. And I stopped in the middle of my performance, and I looked at my mother. I walked off the stage, and I handed her the ukulele to fix, because I didn't know how to tune the ukulele yet. And she was mortified, you know, that I had stopped. And the whole audience was like laughing, and they thought this was just great fun, you know, that I was doing this. And I went back and I finished the song. And my mom told that story a lot, you know, that, do you believe that? She gave me the guitar, I didn't know what to do. The ukulele, rather.
When you hit your teens, did you rebel? It seemed the thing to do back in those days.
I don't know what I was doing. I was yeah, something. I was in, my parents had moved to a very provincial area in New Jersey. Very, very, everybody seemed to belong to something. And when I moved there, I instantly felt like an outsider. So, and I was just starting junior high school, and everybody knew everybody, and they had all gone to school together, and I really was the new kid. And my reaction to that was kind of a stubborn quietness. You know, I didn't do anything bad. I just felt like you know, because I didn't belong, I felt not equal somehow, you know. So that's where it started. Then it got worse.
How would you describe yourself as a teenager then? Were you happy? Were you sad? Were you all the things that teenagers tend to go through?
Yeah, I think I was all those things. But again, because I was a loner and didn't have a lot of friends, I don't, in fact, at one point, I don't think I had any friends. I just went from being, you know, odd. People called me an oddball, you know, and uh, and then I just had boyfriends, you know, and
Were you
so
writing at this stage at all? Were you?
I wrote my whole life.
Really?
I wrote torch songs when I was 4 years old, you know, because those are the songs that I was exposed to. I was exposed to a lot of different music, folk songs from my union organizing, labor songs, songs of labor, and then blues and jazz and Billie Holiday music and Bessie Smith and my mom's idols, you know, and Peggy Lee. I always loved Peggy Lee.
So a wide
And
variety.
one of the
A wide
first,
variety of inspirations, I get. You know, people
oh
to
yeah,
inspire you. Yeah.
the inspiration.
I said your early inspirations then were very varied.
Very, very all over the map, really all over. And it was I remember one of my first records. It was a red record. You know, they had these little records for kids, and the one of the first songs that I remember hearing on a record, like my own little record player, was the Teddy Bears Picnic. Do you know that song?
I do. It's a great song.
You go down to the woods today, you better not go alone. It's lovely down in the woods today, but safer to stay at home. For every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because today is the day the teddy bears have their picnic. And I loved that record. I wore it out. I loved that was like my music, you know.
It's very visual, isn't it? A very visuul song. I mean, you can see
so
it.
Good.
Yeah.
Lots of wonderful things to eat, wonderful games to play. Ta-da! Beneath the trees where nobody sees, they'll hide and seek as long as they please. For that's the way the teddy bears have their picnic. And then it goes off into this other thing. Picnic time for teddy bears. The little teddy bears are having a wonderful time today. Watch them, catch them unawares to see their picnic. Trying to remember the words. I can't believe I can. On their holiday, see them gaily gad about. They're simply mad about. They never have any cares. At 6 o'clock, their mommies and daddies will take them home to bed because they're tired little teddy bears. It's a funny song. I love that song.
I should very, very beautiful.
I really need to make a children's album.
Yeah. In your teen years, did you have any ambitions outside of a musical career?
I never had any vision of a musical career. Right. My mother had always been singing, and people in my household sang and played instruments. My father played a saxophone. This was hobbies and pastimes. And never, I mean, I would look at like famous singers and especially my gender, and I was, well, I'm not going to be one of those. They were all glammed up and with big red lips and you know, plunging necklines, and I never saw myself as that.
So what happened?
I was Davy Crockett when I was little.
Oh, well, so was I. Yeah, how about
Were
that?
you really?
I had the coonskin hat cap, yeah.
Coonskin hat and
So here in Liverpool, I was running around as Davy. He had massive impact.
That is funny. Davy Crockett of Liverpool.
In shorts. So I'm guessing 1964, February, the Ed Sullivan Show. Were you there? Did you watch that show when 4 Liverpudlians appeared?
I know, that was an amazing thing because there weren't that many shows that would allow a person in the genre of songs that I sang. They didn't really put many pop people on major television shows. So it was like considered an amazing event that Ed Sullivan was so gracious when I was at a pretty peak of career, and the audience who came to the live audience that he had, a lot of them were my fans, and it had become some sort of a thing to do to jump up on my stage and just sit around and light candles and whatever people did, sing along with me, and call out songs that they wanted to hear. And so this is what happened at the rehearsal of the Ed Sullivan Show. And the stage manager, who I think was actually Ed Sullivan's brother, but came out trying to get these people off the stage. And Ed Sullivan came out and said, "No, these youths are very respectful and I'm going to let them stay here." And everybody's like looking like, Ed Sullivan's gone mad, he's letting this happen. So, but it was very nice for me because it was much more like a concert. And I was very stiff on television. Television was, I was, it was very, I couldn't think of myself being on television. It was overwhelming. So to be able to have the audience do what they normally did in a show was a great comfort. And Ed Sullivan was really, really enthusiastic. He really was. He said something like, not since, I think he said Elvis, not since Elvis Presley or the Beatles or something, that he hadn't seen this kind of reaction from the fans.
So what had led you to that moment? Because you said a few minutes ago that you didn't see yourself following in the footsteps of the singers
No,
of the day.
no, not at all. It's really strange.
What was your mental turning point that allowed you to pick up a guitar, to actually stand in front of people and do this?
Well, I did go to Greenwich Village a lot with my mom, and she sang, with Sam the Man Taylor, and she loved the avant-garde, Sun Ra, and she sang in the Village in jazz places. And I would go to the Village with my guitar, and I would sing in the street. And I think I was such a shy person, but for some reason, when I sang, I could be free of those inhibitions. Isn't that the weirdest thing? Because in life, I have a hard time walking from one end of a party to another. I would just be one of those people who head for the corner and stay there. But somehow, I was in Greenwich Village. I put the guitar on, and of course, I didn't have a guitar case. Guitar cases were only for people who went like to Berkeley or something, or Juilliard. they were those kind of guitar players, but I was the 3-chord type guitar player, and I just have it hanging on my neck. It was, just hanging on my back. And I would just go into Washington Square and start singing. And because I had a really loud voice, I attracted a big crowd of people. And that in itself would surprise me almost. I was in my own little world. I'm singing, a few people would come, and then all of a sudden I'd look up and there's maybe 100 people around me. And what you were supposed to do is, have a hat and collect money. I didn't put those things together yet. So I didn't have a hat or a guitar case. So I just like walk away real fast and go to another spot.
But at some point you get a record deal at some point.
This was truly a matter of meeting Peter, my husband, manager, producer, who the first time he met me, I just knew he saw something that I had never seen, or maybe I did, but just didn't allow that vision. And nobody ever, said, wow, you're going to be a star or something, that was the furthest thing from my thoughts. And I walked into that office the day of meeting Peter, and I had been on my way to an acting audition. As a path of least resistance, my father would not let me end schooling at high school. He wanted me to go to college, and the thought of another, classroom with people that I felt odd and not belonging, I just didn't want to do it. And I ran away from home because of that, because I did not see myself in that sort of a situation. Going to 4 years of college was not what I wanted to do. I think my father had visions of me being a debutante. he was gonna, all his friends, they were having coming out parties and things, and the girls were, and I think he had that vision for me. He definitely had the wrong girl, but he was very supportive, and he wanted to know, well, what kind of, after I ran away from home, and I ran away all the way from New Jersey to California. I didn't just, take a little day trip. I did the real runaway. I was in California and ended up in a girls' detention home because they had word. Well, it was before, instant communication and knowing what was going on. They knew they were looking for a girl from New Jersey who ran away from home. And there weren't that many runaways then, It was not the thing to do. I sort of started a trend. But so I, was picked up by police and brought to a girls' detention home. I had an amazing bunch of experiences in California. I met Ridgely, who was a big star in the Gallant Men, and I met him on the plane going out to California, and I had made up a name. My name was Eve Dane. That's my name. That was my name. And he said, what's your name? I said, Eve Dane. And, and you're going to California. What are you going to be doing there? I said, I something pretty lame, I think. And by the time I didn't have an instrument with me because I thought that would be too much of a giveaway, that if they were looking for a girl. So I I didn't, but he had a guitar above his seat, and we started talking about music, and he played guitar, and he took his guitar out, and we started singing, and in the plane. And when I got to LA, he said, so you're okay, right? Like you know where you're going. You're not just, you have a place to stay. Oh, yes, I have a place to stay. And I'm thinking, where am I going to stay? You know? And he said, because I know, you know, a lot of people in, what do you do? And I told him I was an actress. You know, I was going to LA to be an actress. So I said goodbye to Robert Ridgely. I didn't know he was a famous person, by the way. I just thought he was a nice man. And he said goodbye. I said goodbye. Now I'm at a phone booth in the airport calling somebody who gave me a name, a number of somebody who might know somebody who I could stay with when I'm in LA. Now I'm realizing, what did I do? You know, not even considering that my parents would be hysterical. You know, you don't think that. This is what you think you should do, and you do it. And so I was in the airport on a telephone, and Robert Ridgely passed. His chauffeur was carrying his bags, and he looked over and said, Eve, I know the woman who runs the Hollywood Studio Club for girls. And if you know a working actor, I can get you in there. So I went, that would be really good. So I went off in his limo, and he took me in, and I was introduced, and this is Eve Dane, and she's an actress, and you know, this kid. But he asked me how old I was, and I think I was, you know, 16 or 17. And I said, I'm 21, you know, of course. And he knew, you know, he knew that I'm making this whole thing up. And he absolutely helped me stay out of trouble, because that would have been a pretty wild thing if I didn't have anywhere to stay. I didn't know anyone. And here's Robert Ridgely from the Gallant Men. He brings me to the Hollywood Studio Club for girls, and I get a little room, you know, and it was very pleasant until I had another experience, because I was a little kid, really. I didn't know what I was doing, and I stopped and talked to strangers. I talked to the wrong stranger, and I ended up in trouble because I was in a situation where I could have gotten hurt. And I ran out the door, and I excused myself from this room with a couple of guys in there, those pesky boys. And I started running. I just started running. The police picked me up, and they brought me to a corner. And from there, I got to the Hollywood Studio Club for girls. And I walk in, it's after hours now, you know, and I was let in. And I went to my room, and I sat there like shaking. I you know, I had probably just escaped with my life, you know, and I got there was one of those phones in the room attached to the wall, and it rang, and I picked up, and the woman there who was in charge said, Melanie. I went, uh-huh. And then I realized, what did I just do? Who is that? Who knows my name? And they said, there's someone here to see you. And I thought, maybe it was my mother or father or something. And I went downstairs, it was the police. But they had this notice that they were looking for a girl from New Jersey, and it was me. So they put me in a girls' detention home.
Wow. This is a
I didn't write
musical.
any songs there.
I think
Way too scared.
the time has come to write those songs. This is a musical that you're describing. I mean, what a story. This is amazing. So
yeah, it's quite a story. And then I walk into the wrong office. I meet Peter, who is the P.T. Barnum of the music industry. I mean, he was so outgoing, such an extrovert, and he saw something in me that, you know, he was determined, you know, to have people hear me, because at first, you know, voice was very gravelly and very different. You know, I wasn't in the beautiful or you know, none of that. There was none of that. So a lot of people say, oh, she sounds like she's singing underwater, you know, and things like that. And sometimes people in the studio might say, can you control your vibrato? And I didn't even know what that was.
How much freedom? How much freedom were you given in the studio? I mean,
total,
right?
For Peter gave me complete. He would like hang on every syllable, every nuance, you know, that, and sometimes, you know, he would go against what the, you know, the studio guys might think or say or some. And he said, no, she has her own thing. So what it was, I had my first record that was like a turntable hit. It wasn't actually a hit record, but it was being played on a lot of radio stations, was Beautiful People. And that was the song that, you know, nobody thought could possibly happen. And it was, you know, what they called a turntable hit. Now they couldn't have such a thing because radio is so controlled. You know, that you know, a DJ doesn't decide the song and plays it, you know.
You went global pretty quickly, really, didn't you? You went global. Suddenly you were not just New York, you were around the world. I mean, I know here Absolutely. In the UK, suddenly hearing that voice for the first time,
I know.
You know, it was truly astonishing. I mean, it was amazing times, and you know, incredible times, because so much was happening. But boy, did you stand out.
I know. It was, Peter always said that I was much more European. He said my appeal would be much more European, he thought. So that was, you know, for actually my first record that was ever a hit was in France. It was a song called Bobo's Party. And a really strange song, actually. And, but that was a hit. And I got to France and there were, you know, people with, Melanie, we love you, you know, like that. I had no idea, you know.
Had you traveled before? I mean, had you traveled through your childhood, or had you been out of the US?
No, I hadn't. The only time I left the country, my parents would, you know, go on summer vacations. Like the farthest we went was to Canada. And that was the biggest thing, you know, to leave the country and go to Canada.
What are your memories of coming to England then, of coming to Britain? Do you have any particular memories of the UK?
Oh yeah, it was the 60s, but to my perception of the style in England was that it was embraced as a look much more than what the ideal was. It felt much more like, I mean, the style was so much more high style, hippie 60s-ness than, I didn't like hang out in Haight-Ashbury or anything, you know, so I don't know from that, but certainly in Greenwich Village, it was, you know, anything goes. You know, people wore torn jeans or you know, embroidered things and headbands or not headbands. But when I got to England, it was like Hollywood Central casting for hippies. You know, it was beautiful. I had seen clothes that were so astonishing. And in fact, that is where I really, my look kind of originated, because before then I knew I loved embroidery. I loved embroidery. And the PR lady at one point in New York said, we have to, you know, you have to have a look. And I thought, well, I don't know what that is. You know, I like embroidery, and I wear, you know, my hair down, and this is what I look like. And she said, but what do you fantasize yourself as looking? You know, how do you fantasize? What would you, if you could have any kind of clothing and any kind of style you wanted, what would that be? And there was an artist called Sulamith Wolfing, and she painted layers of clothes and lots of Celtic symbols. And to me, I wanted it to be right out of one of those paintings, if I could dress like any. And when I went to England, I saw a lot of people dressing like that. And they all must love Sulamith Wolfing. And but there were beautiful things, I think, just you know, fabrics and colors, and people really got into the look of the 60s look. It was beautiful. And I was in Chelsea. We had a flat, and we were living there. And I went down the street one day, and I went into this little shop, and they had that's where I found the first Babe Rainbow poster, by the way. It was the artist who painted it had his painting done on a tin, piece of tin. And that fascinated me, Babe Rainbow. Of course, I wrote a song called Babe Rainbow. And, but she had these dresses that were called Bedouin wedding dresses. And I put one on, and I thought, oh, this is what that woman, the PR woman, meant when she said, if you could wear anything, what would it be? And it was this Bedouin wedding dress. And I think, and they were really inexpensive. They had lots of embroidery. And what the story is a woman would wear this at her wedding, and then she would hand it down to her daughter, and more embroidery would get done with each marriage. So the tapestry of these dresses, it was like I had met my match, you know. And I bought a bunch of them, and it was great because you could go on the road, and it was made of this black fabric, mostly of a kind that didn't wrinkle. So I bought a bunch of these dresses, and I could pack 5 or 10 of them in a suitcase and go on the road for a year. They were great. They were very practical, as well as being very ornately embroidered. I love fabrics. And
another love. You paint, don't you? And you paint on.
I
stones.
do. I paint. I do all kinds of odd things on stones. I have some here. Now some are, this one is, you know, I just saw the face in the stone. That's,
wow.
You know, sort of
so where is that stone from?
You know what? I don't know. I found it on my bureau. It had fallen on the floor, and I said, where did the stone come from? But it looked like a heart. But then I was looking at it, and it's sort of like seeing faces in the clouds. You know, I look at a stone, and some of them just have something like, let me see. like this one is just, he looks like, you know, can you see it?
I
there?
can. That's beautiful.
It looks like face was in there. You know, I didn't make this up, you know.
Most artists that I know use canvas. What attracted you to stones?
It probably would be a little more profitable if I were able to use canvas. This is called When Stone Face Smiles.
Excellent.
But then there are others. There's like this one. Oh, this one is a baboon lady, and I call her Oi Bojami. There.
And how long have you been doing this?
But I've been painting on stones since I was a kid. I always painted on stones, but now these are a little more intricate. You see it?
Yep.
And then I do the backs of them too. A friend of mine embedded, you know, wrapped this one. So it was.
They're beautiful. Are these available for people to purchase?
Not really. I mean, sometimes I'll paint, you know, these are my Sweet Home Alabama. I'd have a series of owls.
I can see an owl over your shoulder as we speak.
What?
There is an owl over your shoulder as we speak.
Oh, that's right. That's right. My owl stein. I collect steins.
They're beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
But these are the ones that I really are. I call them ladies' or saints. That was. But yeah, no, I haven't like connected with a gallery or anything.
Okay.
Well, she's really cute. I think she's Dutch.
Definitely Dutch. Definitely. Right. Well, this leads into my next question, really, and it's a question I've asked many people over the years, and I'm always hopeful somebody will give me an answer. And my question is, tell me, Melanie, what is the meaning of life?
Oh, that. Well, that changes weekly, doesn't it? I mean, it's a crazy life. It's to, you know, enjoy whatever moments you have and to be as helpful to people. My feeling is the meaning of life is to be of service to humanity in some way, to give to humanity some reason to continue, because there isn't one. You know, so this is what I believe is the meaning, is to give a reason.
That is my favorite reason so far in this series.
Thank you.
And
I just made that up, really.
Well,
I
that's
did.
all the better.
I'm amazed to myself.
Write it down quickly. Yes.
Look at that one. Thank you.
And these are fantastic. These are truly fantastic.
Thank you.
America today. You're sitting there in America. I'm sitting in Liverpool.
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
You know, to me, America was the last holdout. I know it's going to be an unpopular view, especially in Europe and England. But Europe and England got tame a lot sooner than America. And they're taming people and behave well. And there is a lot to say about behaving, because, you know, it makes life easier for lots of other people. But I'm not a great believer in well-behaved. I'm a believer in good manners, but not tame. So, and again, I mean, the freedoms in this country have been diminished in the name of all kinds of things. And again, everything's being politicized, and all I see is a dwindling effect on the arts and humor. There's a movie called, what was it? What was the name? Ridicule. It's a French film. If you get a chance, watch that film.
I'm writing
Ridicule.
Ridicule.
And to me, it says a lot about the people you're afraid to speak out against are the people who control you. That's it. So I'm not a political person. People don't come to see my music because they're going to get enlightened about who to vote for. I don't talk about it. This is my opinion. That's why there's secret ballots. Go in and do what you want, you know. But I see a dwindling action of our rights. I used to come home from Europe and think, oh, it's so great here. I could just say anything. I could do, you know, and I could be loud and noisy. I'm not that I am, but I can. If I want to be. If I want to be, I can. And I remember when I first took my children to Europe, especially Germany, and I would take them into restaurants because we were on the road, you know, so and you know, kids will be kids and may make noise and do. I would get these looks and I think, God, I can't wait to get home, you know, for that. But it's almost the same here. People give you dirty looks.
Speaking of children, would the 10-year-old Melanie get on with the Melanie of 2020?
I was always fascinated with people who had things to say, you know, so I talked to everybody. I talked to old people and young people, and I'm not sure if I'd have become so meddled with that I would think I'm irrelevant. But then I was very interested. So I think so. I mean, I'm thinking if I was a kid now or then. You're asking then, right?
I'm asking, yeah, the 10-year-old you as you were. If
what? Right.
She walked into that room today with you, do you think you would get on? And vice versa, would you get on with that 10-year-old kid?
If the woman let me play with the rocks, yes. And touch them, if I were allowed to touch them.
And would the woman let her?
Joni Mitchell.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Well, that brings us to the future.
Future.
It's speeding towards us. You're somebody who seemed to be on tour a lot through your life.
Yeah, and this is quite a halt.
Yeah.
You know, it's horrible. It's horrible.
I agree completely. So what are we going to do? And what are you going to do, more importantly?
I'm going to proceed as much as possible to be as much of who I am and how I do things as possible. And I'm sure there'll be people who are going to get angry with me for maybe not singing with my face mask on or something. I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't wear this. I can't breathe right with a face mask on. And also I found out all this stuff about, well, they don't work, you know, and it's not airborne, and it's not even a matter of stuff being on surfaces. 70% of the people get COVID. I hate that word. It sounds like Darth Vader. Doesn't COVID sound deep, Darth Vader, COVID? I mean, they purposely gave it a more evil name. I know they did, to terrify people. So, but people are getting it, but the effects aren't as killer as they were. So I'm here to say I wouldn't be so afraid, but that's probably politically aligns me with something very unpopular, so I don't say that. Just do what you feel like you want to do. But if you're really afraid, it means something's wrong, because you don't need to be so afraid.
Are you writing?
So I'm going to tour as soon as anybody lets me.
Okay.
And with whatever we have to do, I'm going to do a live stream show. Be on the lookout. I am going to do this. We got Bo Jared, my son, has gotten all into visual. He's also an engineer, for audio. But we're going to be doing a live stream show where we sell tickets. We're working on that. I didn't have an agent.
All the details will be coming up on your website, I'm sure. So
I hope so. Yeah, if I get that together, I hope so. And but yeah, that's what I'm doing right this minute.
Are you writing? Are you writing?
I write. I just wrote a song with Keb Mo, and it was a great collaboration. He came over here, we worked on a song, we finished it. I'm going upstairs right after this, and I'm going to do my vocal on it.
Is your writing process any different to? Has it changed, evolved through the years, or writing a song is?
The best way. I think the best way. My best songs are ones that just come flying out, and I know I've had experiences where I was I had this one time that I was writing for a Hollywood TV show, and they wanted this for a particular piece of music. That was the theme. And
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
And I got the music, and the minute I got it, I had the lyrics. The lyrics were done. They were in my head. As soon as I was hearing the music, the lyrics were like in there. Just like, I look at a stone and I see a little wolfy thing. I saw the lyrics, and I heard the lyrics in my head, and I wrote the song like instantly. I handed it in the next day, and the director said, "Oh, well, I'll have to run this by the producer, and the producer will have to run it by the actor, and the actor will have to run it by," and everybody's like looking at who's the important person who's going to accept it or veto it. And so they looked and they said, "Oh, no, the director, the producer thinks it needs more of his point of view in the lyric." I thought, well, that's really silly. What does that mean, So I, wrote some more, and now I hand that back. No, it's got his point of view, but it's not open enough, and she needs to be expressed, and this is what needs to happen. And so I'm writing. I had a whole legal pad filled with lyrics, and they were getting more and more ridiculous and more contrived. And then at one point they wanted me to say Beauty and the Beast, and I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do that. And I kept writing and writing. Now this was right before people had the ability to have instant computer access to everything. It was all yellow legal pads. Bo, give me my the Emmy. Yeah, I know. So I'll make a point with this. With this, they were back and forth and torturing me. They were torturing me. It was torture. I decided, because I knew. I knew the very first lyric was perfect.
Of course.
It was perfect. So what I did was I handed them the first lyric I ever did and crossed my fingers that nobody would remember. And sure enough, I got a call the next day and the producer said, Melanie, you got it. You see, honey, all that hard work paid off. And I won an Emmy for this.
Well done, you. And you realize the reason they went through that process was because they had to be seen to be doing something.
They had to be seen to be doing something, and they didn't like that it was so quick. I said if I ever did anything for Hollywood again, I would make it a couple of weeks before I hand anything in. They want to think you suffered over it.
Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful story. It's a horrific story, but it's a beautiful story as well. Because I know
it's true. It's totally
anybody
true.
in the arts, it will resonate with who's gone through similar things. Melanie, it's been a delight to see and chat with you tonight. And thank you so much, not only for tonight, but for the last 50 plus years. You have made such a difference to this planet. You truly have made it a place worth visiting, and bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for that. There have been many moments where you have made the difference to me personally, and I'm sure I'm speaking for a zillion people out there. So keep on.
Thank you.
And thank you so much.
Yeah, well, say hello to Jane, and I hope to see you in real life quick.
We better hand. I'm looking forward to that moment. Cheers, Melanie.